I'm Katie Wells, host of the Maximized Minimalist podcast. I escaped the hamster wheel of modern-day motherhood, overwhelmed by clutter and buried under the mental load. Now I live in a home that feels calm, manageable, and made for real life. I have margin in my days, energy for who matters most, and time for slow mornings and silly dance parties in the kitchen with my family. With over 5 million listens, the show has helped women around the world turn their homes into their happy place. Around here, we simplify for more peace, more presence, and more joy. We choose grace over guilt and progress over perfection. And we believe your home should give back more than it takes. I'm here to help you do the same. Come along with me and my guests as we share the real stories, habits, and strategies that help you lighten the load from the inside out. Pull up a seat, friend, and let's do this together. Ready, set, simplify. What's up, simplifiers? We have a special guest on the show today. Her name is Dr. Meg Mill. I absolutely love following her. And to be honest, I am a little bit geeking out that I get to interview her on my show. So excited to bring her into your earbuds today, wherever you're listening from. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited.
So, Dr. Meg, I talk obviously a lot on the show about simplifying, and that tends to be simplifying what's around us. But today we're looking at having the conversation about simplifying what's within us. So you often see women coming into your clinic who feel burned out, anxious, fatigue, all the things. And I would love if you could explain how things like gut health, hormones, all these different things can drive the stress we feel and how maybe they're linked, because I'm seeing more and more research come out about this, which is so fascinating.
I know. I mean, it's really, I'm just so happy actually to see all the change and all the research and all the information that's coming out, because I think that's one of the things that's the hardest is we feel dismissed. I mean, I feel like if we take a step back and say, okay, one of the things that I've been doing a lot of research even lately is women in medical studies and how women actually until 1993 weren't really even included in a lot of like our trials because of our variability in hormones and our cycles and the fact that they could be pregnant, like all of these things excluded women. So a lot of the things that we see in conventional medicine, the medical standards are actually for men. So I think that's like our first step of saying we are not just small men. We have unique physiology and women should be, really included in a lot of medical research. So what happens then is in some ways because of that, and in some ways because we have a drug happy medical system where it's like, okay, we have this problem. What's the medication? If there's no medication, then we're just dismissed. A lot of women are feeling dismissed. We know there's something wrong. We know we don't feel well. We know that, we need help, but we're just told like, oh, you're fine. I was told that, like I was having all these issues. I couldn't eat anything. My stomach was upset all the time. I never knew what was going to trigger me. And it's like, oh, you're the picture of health. Like, oh, your labs are perfect. You're healthy. And you're just like, yeah, but I can't eat. I can't sleep. I'm anxious all the time. Like what's going on here? So we're dismissed, which feeds into it. Then we're sitting here saying, okay, we know there's something wrong. We're not getting answers. And now we're anxious because we don't know what to do and why to do it. So we can get into like what we should do, but we want to flip it around and say, okay, we need to actually look at what's going on here instead, and looking at what we call the root causes of what's going on so we can put pieces back together, because you're not broken. There's a lot of times just these like puzzle pieces that aren't connecting. And when we put those back together, we get our body back in a place where we feel great again.
Wow. Yeah. I can tell you every single one of my friends I've spoken with about physical symptoms who've gone maybe the more traditional route have typically been dismissed. I can name 5 people right now. And it's just like it's so common and it's so frustrating. And I put me in there too. Oh gosh, I have a long story about that. So I'm curious. And by the way, I didn't know about women not being included on those trials. That to me is insane, but also I shouldn't be surprised by anything anymore at this rate.
I know.
It's like, oh
I know,
my
even
gosh.
today, because of the way it's set up. And, we have, so when you think about a woman's cycles, we have changing hormones all month. So then there is there's not in let's just say drug trials, they want to have all the things that are standardized. So like as much as you can standardize to not see a difference, you're going to try to standardize. So then it's like, because we're fluctuating, because our hormones change, it's considered like atypical, but really, that's our typical. That's women. So
oh my gosh.
we need to be thought of that way. So I know. And it is, it's disheartening, and there's a lot of like different things that are broken. Not that there's really purpose and value in all of the system, but in some ways. But when we're looking at these chronic symptoms, like you mentioned, when we're looking at how you digest and absorb your food. So let's go back. We can talk through some of these different specific scenarios if you would like to. So what I work with people through what I actually call the cascade method. And I created this method over years of time, and everyone's different. So it's not like, everyone does the exact same thing, but it's like a framework where we can say, okay, you need to have this in place, and then you need to have this in place. And think of it like the cascading, or like climbing a staircase. If you're doing the right thing in the wrong order, it backfires. And I think that's like the other thing you and I were just chatting about, how people are just bombarded with constant information all the time. And what starts to happen is it's like, I don't even know what to do, because this influencer said this, and I read this, and I listened to this podcast and it said this, and I read this article. And I even people I'm working with, they're actually like messaging me like, should I take this supplement? I'm like, why? Well, because I saw it in here, and I need this. Like they said, everyone needs this, and I'm like, but you do you? Like that doesn't mean that you do. And I think we're just getting that marketing all the time, and so we don't even know what to do in the right order. So what we want, we want to look at it in somewhat of an order of like, okay, what we need to do. And so the first thing, and this is a boring step, the one that people like want to skip over because it's not as fancy, but calming your nervous system. So we need to be able to regulate our nervous system in order to digest our food and absorb nutrients. So we want to jump to, let's say, supplements, because we kind of live in that world where, what's the thing I can take? What's the thing I can do? So we say, okay, we can take supplements. But if you are in like a stressed out state all of the time, if your cortisol's high, if you're dysregulated in your nervous system, you're literally telling your body not to digest. It's saying, don't digest my foods. Like, don't release stomach acid. Don't release pancreatic enzymes. Don't release bile. We have what we call migrating motor complex that pushes like food through our system. Your motility slows. Like, we're giving our body the opposite message to digest and absorb. So if we can't digest and absorb, then we can't actually get the value from the nutrients that we're eating. I mean, I'm not saying skip a healthy diet. Like, yes, eat healthy, eat organic, do those things, but we want to also make sure that we can actually get the value. So we want to be able to regulate our nervous system so we can give our body the right signals to do like what we want it to do, which is be in our rest and digest, which is called our parasympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic is rest and digest. Sympathetic is fight or flight. So we live a lot in the sympathetic. We want to bring ourselves back. So things like really thought reframing. So I work with a lot of people on changing, your thoughts are feeding your body information. So we work on thought reframing and I have this whole system where we do thought replacement because we need to build neuroplasticity, rewire the patterns in our brain so that we have these positive thoughts that serve us. We also want to do things like breath work. Just you can sit for 2 minutes. Deep breathe. In between my appointments, I have a virtual practice. So I'm online a lot. I see women all over the world. And in between appointments, I even myself will just say, okay, I'm going to take, 5 really deep breaths. I'm sit here for a minute and breathe in between the next session. So I'm ready to go. Like I'm centered. I can do it again, because we have to continuously be bringing our body back into that parasympathetic nervous system. And then a lot of different, there's a lot of tools here. So we can do like mindfulness or meditation or being with nature or grounding or whatever work, some people dancing or singing or whatever works for you. But we need to be able to build that resilience no matter what's going on. Because people say, Well, Meg, but I have so much stress in my life and I can't control all of that. And I know, but we need to regulate you no matter what is going on in your life. So we're really saying, okay, how do we regulate ourselves to be able to deal and have resilience with whatever we're
Yes.
experiencing here? So that's where we start. And we can do that in tandem with other things, but we don't want to
Sure.
forget that piece because it is really important for all of the other things that we do. So then we activate digestion. So like I said, remember that if we can't digest and absorb the nutrients, we're not getting the value necessarily. So are we actually digesting and absorbing our food? How does our body do that? And so we make sure that our digestive functions, like we said, that we have enough stomach acid, that we have enough digestive enzymes, that we are releasing bile from our gallbladder at the right time to digest fats. We want to make sure that we don't have a leaky gut where we're creating kind of this immune or inflammatory response, that we don't have parasites or candida or intestinal overgrowth of bacteria. So we're really making sure that the digestive system is running smoothly, and that's the interface of, like we said, how we're going to face the world with and how we absorb what we need. So we need to work through that, and then we want to make sure that we supply nutrients, that we get are you eating vegetables? So how
Mm.
many really take that. This is a time to look at yourself internally and say, how many vegetables do I eat a day? Like, do I eat 35 different plants a week? Probably not. And a lot of us don't. And that might not be where you are right now, but you don't need to get there tomorrow, but
Yeah.
can you add a vegetable to, each of your meals? Can you, what? It's the little steps. I think you and I have talked, like, it's
Really
those
is.
little
Yes.
steps that just, like, okay, what can you do? That's something you can do today. Look at, can I add? So we want to make sure we're really supplying nutrients. Are we having protein with breakfast? Are we having enough fiber? Like, all these things that are so important. So we want to, that's a focus. And then we also want to make sure that we can clear elimination pathways. And this is something that I think a lot of people, even in the functional medicine world, kind of get backwards, because
Mm.
a lot of people are talking about and leading with detox these days. We hear a lot about
Yes.
toxins, a lot about detox. This is they're buzzwords. And so I have a lot of people that come to me because they've gone to an online program or to something and they've done a detox, and it made them feel so much worse because their body wasn't ready to actually detox. So you have to make sure that you're clearing your elimination pathways. Like, do you go to the bathroom every day? Like, you should be. So
Mhm.
if you're, at least once a day. So if you're not, then if we push any toxins out of you, they're just going to reabsorb. So it's
Wow.
like, yeah, so that's where it's like, when you're saying, hearing these things of like, oh, you need to take this supplement. Okay, but let's say you're saying is taking a supplement that's mobilizing toxins from your cells. Your toxins are in your cells because they're trying to protect your body from the toxins in the bloodstream and other things. So things get stored in, like, adipose tissue, which is fat
Mm.
tissue,
Mhm.
in bone, in places where, like, okay, let's just shunt it there so we don't have to deal with our major organs and things like that. Well, we're pulling those out, and then they're reabsorbing, and then you're just getting more sick, or getting more brain fog, or more, a lot of those things, more reactive. So we see a lot of that happen. So we want to make sure that, like, your bowels are moving, your lymph is flowing, that you're drinking enough, that you're sleeping, like, that we're doing all of those foundational things. We also want to activate your metabolism then. So how is your body metabolizing? Like, where is your insulin? Where is where are your thyroid hormones? Where's your cortisol, which is our stress hormone? Like,
Yeah.
thyroid is cellular metabolism. 1 in 3 people are expected to have diabetes by, like, 2050, which is really alarming. And something like, when we're talking about the conventional medicine system, like, why aren't we taking 10 steps backward and dealing with metabolism down here, instead of waiting till we get there? Things are so much harder to reverse when disease progresses. So if we can
Yes.
do the pre-work, we can actually make these changes that are pretty easy to make. Like, they're pretty easy down here, at the beginning, but then when you're up here and you've gone through this disease progression, and really a lot of times it's like, oh yeah, your glucose is going up. Oh wait, yeah, okay, you're pre-diabetic. Well, that's why are we not doing anything? Then it's like, oh wait, now you need medicine. Now you need another medicine. So we're just like letting it flow with putting more things on it later on and really not coming back. So one of the things like that I like to mention here is that insulin will generally go up before glucose. So when you go to your doctor, you are generally getting a fasting blood sugar, and that's measuring your glucose in a fasting state. But insulin, so think of the glucose is in your blood and it needs to get in your cell, and insulin's sort of the lock and key that pulls it from the blood into the cell. So we need insulin to get it in there. Well, when you have a lot of blood glucose, insulin will go up first because insulin's like, take it in the cell, take it in the cell, take it in the cell. It's trying to get in there. And so we'll start to see that rise, but it's often not checked. It's a really cheap, easy thing to check, but we're not actually often getting our insulin even evaluated. So you want to make sure that your insulin levels are in check, because you may see that before you actually see that fasting blood glucose, which is, some of these are just like simple things that we can ask for. And then then we want to look at dialing in the hormones. And that's another thing I think that comes to play, because a lot of times that will be the thing. People will come in and like, I need my hormones fixed, because there's a lot of talk again about hormones. And we do, like, definitely many women are dysregulated with their hormones. But if we don't get some of the foundational things in first, then in some of the work that you're doing on your hormones isn't as effective, because maybe you don't have those building blocks to create hormones. Like, you need to methylate estrogen in order to get it out of the body. You need folate and you need B12 and you need magnesium and choline to help that process of liver detoxification of estrogen. So if you don't have those things, and you're not, like, you don't have the building blocks there, then some of the other work that you're doing isn't quite as effective. So we need to, but balancing, particularly for women, looking at hormones is, such an essential piece of feeling well. I can't tell you how many people I've heard say, I feel good the first 2 weeks of the month, and then starting, mid-cycle, the next 2 weeks, I'm just feel terrible for the rest of the time when you're in that luteal phase. So that, if you take away anything, take away that you don't have to. So there's so many different things that we can do that you don't have to. So, and then, after we have all that in place, then we can look at, okay, do we need to detox? What is what do we have you been exposed to? We can look at environmental toxins before that point and really bring down the environment. But we want to make sure that we're really, like, if we're going to actually detox, if someone has like some exposure or toxic overload or lives in a moldy environment, or but we're doing that from a place of strength. So as you can see, it's kind of like getting all of these pieces, but getting them in the order that really benefits you. And everyone may come in at a different place. Like, maybe you have these foundational things, but we just want to make sure that we're really getting you foundationally solid with all of the things, so that the things we're working on really are effective for you and don't make you actually feel worse.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing as you're going through this cascade method too, is we could just be missing, let's say I used to have really bad gut issues, bloating after anything I ate, quote unquote, healthy or not healthy, ice cream, salad, whatever, it didn't matter. I was like, I feel horrible, and then I was like, okay, well, I'll work on my diet, right? It seemed like an easy solution as like a first step. But if I'm not calming my nervous system in the sense that I literally can't digest and absorb the salad and I'm having all these bloating, like going through these different pieces, or maybe I do have some environmental toxins that need to be looked at. Like you said, it's like these puzzle pieces that you as like a functional medicine doctor are helping people put together to help solve it at its root.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where, like, someone once said to me, I was working there, like, it is like a sliding puzzle and you're just kind of sliding off, and then the puzzle just locks and you're just like, oh yeah, that locked into place, and all the pieces. And sometimes everyone's different. Like, for some people, you may just have like one or two pieces that just need to be like shifted. And it's like, oh, that tweak. And maybe because everything else is in line, you can start at the hormone piece, because like, you're digesting and absorbing really well. You've already, your nervous system, you've done the work, and you have the nutrients down, and and you can do that tweak. But a lot of times, like the next person's going to come in and it's going to be like, okay, I have all these different pieces and we need to work on those pieces and we need to work on them in the right order in order to really get you feeling well. And when we do, I mean, I think the best part of my job is that you can see these huge health transformations. And I think it's like things that people never thought possible. Like if you think, I have to live like this. And
Yes.
one of the things I see so often with women, there's so many things, from fatigue to gut issues to weight loss resistance but chronic migraines, like people are so let down. So many women have migraines and have had them their whole life. And it's like, oh, you just have to live with that, or you have a migraine gene. And you can just like literally they can go away. And I think people don't realize, like, it's just like, oh, this is the only option that you have is medication. You have to live with this. You have to live your life around this. And it's like, actually people go from daily migraine, like intense migraines, to no migraines. And it's possible. I think that's one of those things that's just not ever talked about. Like it's just like such a tangible thing to measure.
Yeah. I remember, so just context for any new listeners, I always say in my previous life, but that confuses people. In my previous career, they're like, wait, what? I'm like, oh, sorry. In my previous career, my husband is a chiropractor by trade. So now he's a consultant. But years ago, we ran a holistic medicine clinic. So he adjusted people. We did functional medicine, all these things. And same thing, I did all the patient intake for thousands of people over the years. And especially a lot of women, like you said, migraines. And I talk to them in their intake and say like, okay, well, can you tell me more about your migraines? How often you get them? And they're like, oh, like probably once a week. And they say it like no big deal. And I'm like, and I think it's like demystifying common versus normal. They're like, oh, well, that's just normal. And I'm like, it's common. It's not normal. Cause I think when it's like, when we get it confused, we're like, oh, well, that's just the way it is. And it stinks. And I just have to deal with it. And I would always say, well, what would it be like to not have those headaches anymore? And they'd be like, oh, well, I guess I never thought about it because no one's ever really given me hope. It's just like, I've tried the medications, I've tried the Botox for the migraines, I've tried all these different things. And they come in, probably you too, as like a last resort, like a last ditch effort, So I love your approach on this. And I'm curious too, because I feel like I've been seeing more and more of this is physical symptoms leading or like a correlation between like gut health. Let's use that one. That's a big one because it connects to our brain and mental health. Can you speak to that, whether it be research or, just being in your office with your client or patients?
Yeah. And I mean, that is huge. So, we're looking at this in a couple different ways. So we were talking about nervous system and we have our enteric nervous system. So that you have a central nervous system, you have an autonomic nervous system, and you have an enteric nervous system. And that connects down that like all of those neurons are in your gut. So there's like trillions of little neurons that are actually living around that are like kind of wrapped through and around the digestive system that are sensing that, all the things that are going on. So, and then we have your gut and your brain. So we have what we call the vagus nerve. And so the vagus nerve connects from the back of the stem of your brain down to your gut. And it's like a super highway. So think of it like crosstalk all the time of like, they're called afferent and efferent pathways. Those are like that, there's technical terms but they're talking to and away from the brain, away from the brain to the gut. And so we are seeing that it's all connected. It's all connected in that from the fact that things like serotonin, which is, you hear of serotonin as your happy, neurotransmitter in your brain that gives you good mood and things like that. Well, 90% of our serotonin is actually made in our gut. Now, a lot of that serotonin that's made in the gut is actually also helping with motility. So we need serotonin to have like regular bowel movements for motility, but we're also communicating through that vagus nerve when we have overgrowth of bacteria. that we're sending messages up to the, up the vagus nerve and across the blood-brain barrier to, to the brain. So we're signaling them. When I'm talking about the brain, we're saying there's what we call the cephalic phase of digestion. So before you even take your first bite of food, you're actually like the thinking about it, the smelling it, all of those things are affecting your digestive organs. So the brain is actually telling you whether or not that's like your first phase if you're going to digest. So if you're not like paying attention, if you're stressed out, if you're doing a million things when you eat, if you're nervous all the time, like I was saying at the beginning, you're literally telling your body not to digest versus saying, okay, stomach acid, let's get ready in the stomach. Okay, pancreas, release some digestive enzymes. Okay, motility, go. Start your peristalsis. Like it's giving your body direction. And so when we're having all of these things go on, we're kind of saying, okay, don't do this. So I know I'm kind of like going all over the place here, but I'm like trying to loop it back around that it's basically crosstalk. It's basically,
Yes.
Crosstalk between the gut and the brain all the time. So should we digest? Should we not digest? And then the brain and then the gut saying, okay, I have a parasite. I'm in danger, where we're saying, when we're looking at some of these things, you're not. So even like when your body's under stress, there's different types of stress. So we always think of stress as like mental, emotional stress, but there's also like physiological and biological stressors. So if we have these things going on in our gut, that we're actually sending signals again back to the brain saying like, danger, I'm fighting this right now. And you don't even know you're fighting it because you don't even know it's there, but your body does. And so you're sending, some of these signals that way too. So it is this crosstalk constantly between the gut and the brain of regulation both ways, bidirectional.
Interestingly enough, so our family was involved in a really bad car accident, which was kind of the kickstart of this new career for me and just a drastic lifestyle change. And in that car accident, my husband had broken neck, needed surgery, broken shoulder, broken lung, like a chiropractor's worst nightmare, right?
Yeah.
And he had a major concussion. And about 6 months later, he started having really bad gut issues. He'd never had gut issues in his life. And I'm just so grateful for his knowledge and just us paying attention to the research and, this holistic approach, because he's like, it was the brain gut connection. My brain literally was injured. I had an injury. Yeah. That's what a concussion is. And my gut is suffering. So he's had to do a lot of these things you talked about in your cascade method to help support him through healing that, where I'd imagine a lot of people, they are like, well, I don't know, give me the stomach stuff, or whatever, the seltzers or whatever is going to help. And I'm not saying that's bad, but I'm saying if we can just zoom out and go, hold on, look at my body as a whole, what could be going on here? And unfortunately, I think when we go to certain physicians, it's like, we have to advocate for ourselves. And it's like, sometimes I'm like, do I have to make you believe that I am suffering right now? Because I hate to use the term gaslight, but I feel like I have been experienced that in my past medical history. Yeah.
And that's actually what made me move from conventional into functional medicine, because of my own experience of that, of saying, okay, you're healthy. There's nothing wrong. You're like, no, there is something wrong. Like, I know that there's something wrong, and here I need to make that change. And then that's when I dove, like, same thing, like personal experience, dove into the research, and, mine started with that exact, like what you're saying. So I had the gut health issues, and then I started getting anxiety. I started not sleeping. I started reacting things. So it was just like starting, like escalating, and you're going to like I went to like 4 different gastroenterologists, because I was like, oh, this one's going to give me this one's going to give me the answer. And then it's like, oh no, you're fine. You're fine. And like, I can't eat. I'm not fine. So whenever that made me think, okay, I'm diving into like research here. And that was, probably 15 years ago now, but it was what led me to like, okay, now I'm going to I'm starting to feel better. I'm finally getting answers, and then I'm going to get certified in functional medicine, and I'm going to open my, it's just like that led me to the journey to be able to see. And I guess that's the message here, is don't accept that. And I think there is that advocacy of like, why, I think it's like, okay, if they're going to give you a drug, well, why am I taking that drug? When we're talking about gut health issues, how many people are just put on a proton pump inhibitor? Over time actually decreases your stomach acid. We need stomach acid in order to, like we're saying, digest. And it's just like handed out like candy of like, oh, this is just what we do with everyone. Well, we need to actually look at what's going on. A lot of people have never had a stool test. When we do a stool test, we can see literally exactly what microbes are there. We can look at your digestive functions. There's so much information to really pinpoint what's going on. So, but most people aren't even offered that.
Speaking of testing, I'm trying to think of all the tests I've done: stool, blood, spit, urine. I think I've done them all. Not all at once, y'all. But is there, if someone were to go to a functional medicine or holistic, medicine doctor, wherever they're living or nearby, is it always based, I'm assuming, on what's happening versus like, you need all these tests? I'm sure it depends on the provider too, but what's like the most, like, what would you say is the test that can solve, I don't know, does one solve 80%?
I think it's about the person. And that's where like, I actually don't, for my practice, like I don't order a bunch of testing up front. And there's two reasons behind that. One, tests are expensive. And so it's like, okay, we have, we're just saying, we don't necessarily need to run that $1,000 of all these different tests if we don't have to. So it's really looking at like, okay, what is your issue? What's going to move the needle the most? And what do we need to do? The second is, and take this into account if you are working with someone who's like just going to run a ton of tests, because things change in your body. So remember we were talking about like with the cascade method, we're like walking up the steps and you need to get to this step and then you need to get to this step. Well, your lab is going to be different on step 3 than it was on step 1. So if I run 5 tests on you in step 1, I can't do all of that. And you can't do all of that because your body can't handle all of that at necessarily all the work at one time. So it's like, okay, we're getting this piece in. And then by the time we got to the step 3, like you should have a different picture than you did back then, because, hopefully you are, digesting and absorbing. Maybe your cortisol is more regulated. Maybe there's different things going on in your body. And so we need to get you where you are. So I think that is something also to look out for. Like if you're talking to someone who's like, you have to do I do all the same tests for everyone and everyone does this. It's like, okay, how is that individualized? And why are we doing all of these tests right now? Because I think there is like progression of value when we need it.
And also the ability to heal with simplicity.
Yeah.
It's like versus just add more, do all the things, do all the supplements all at once. It's like, whoa, maybe that can work. But I totally, your logic makes a ton of sense. So for the woman listening who's realizing like, okay, my body's been asking for attention, but I feel overwhelmed, where to start? A lot of them maybe go to ChatGPT in this day and age. And let's be honest, maybe, I don't know, Google, is Google going to be obsolete? Nobody knows. WebMD is going to be obsolete. We don't need to self-diagnose on WebMD anymore, but it's like AI or their favorite, maybe physician on Instagram. Like, where do we start? Where do we go next?
Yeah, that's scary, huh? It is, I know, in Instagram medicine. But yeah, so you can use ChatGPT in a way. So you just don't want to replace reason. So ChatGPT is only as good as the inputs that you get. So, if you got your blood, like if you get your standard blood work and you say, okay, what levels are out of range, it can tell you what levels are out of range. So, you can use that. If you see, one of the things I actually love to use it for, because I, like all of you guys, get targeted on Instagram for like this supplement or this, product, or even if it's out of the house space, it's like, okay, once you see it and then it's like, you're going to see it 20 times and it's going to, snap a picture of it, put it in ChatGPT and say like, give me all of the like scientific research on this and reviews, like data and reviews, and tell me like if it's a reputable product and like verify, research, give me the research that verifies that, and it will. And then you can be like, oh, you can see kind of like some things that are scams come right up. I've done. So I'm like, that's like a good way to actually use it.
My jaw has dropped. Actually, it's funny. I use Andrew as my Chat GPT just because he's he's my knowledge base for that stuff.
Mhm.
I got not an ad. It was like just a straight up promotion from a physician I really love and admire and still do. And she was like, you need this if you want more energy. I'm like, well, everyone wants more energy. So I was like, clickbait.
Yeah.
I'm just going to, and everything like, I'm like, this sounds great. I sent it to Andrew and he's like, look at the second ingredient. And I was like, oh, I think we bypass maybe what we might do if it weren't coming from a reputable source in our minds. Like I always look at the ingredients, but because it came from her, I was like, it must be good. And I was like, dang it. I'm so glad I have Andrew. But if you don't have a Andrew, like that makes total sense. I love that.
Yes. Yeah. Because it's like, okay, can you verify it? Because what you have to remember too, and I'm on Instagram too. So, we're all over there. We all hang out there, but especially when you're seeing products, when you see people like saying that they're selling you products, they're getting money, like it's business. And so not everyone, but generally, like if you see someone start talking about a product a lot and it's like, oh, this product, generally they're, getting some sort of commission from sharing that product. Not that hopefully it's a product they really do love and use, but you have to take that into account. And I've seen some medical people, like you're saying, turn influencer that start, really doing that and really starting to say like, then it's all about this part. And then people start to message me again saying, but this person said like this one. I'm like, you have to remember they're most likely getting paid for this. And this isn't right for you right now. Or like, so you always have to think, like, why am I taking this product? Like, why should I and how does it serve me? And taking a lot of supplements isn't always better. I mean, let's go back to like, if you take anything you put in your body has consequence. So if you're taking, every decision with food that you make has a consequence, whether that's good or bad. Like, are you giving yourself nutrients? Are you giving yourself junk? So you get to choose. And then every supplement you take has consequences. It has, effects on your body. It has to be processed. Every medication, we call them side effects. They're just effects. Like that's part of their effects. So each thing you put in your body has reason, good, bad, whatever. And so think like just adding more stuff isn't necessarily always a great thing. It's like purposeful things that we want to make sure we're adding. So what's your purpose? Yeah.
And by the way, too, I was thinking back to the calming the nervous system. I was going to give this as a tip, but you're the expert. I read, or maybe Andrew told me, to be honest. Sometimes he tells me things and I'm like, I'm not going to do that. And then I read it and I'm like, oh, it must be true then.
Yeah. Like my kids, that's what they do too. Yeah.
Right. So he was like, humming can help stimulate your vagus nerve. So like 1 to 2 minutes of and it like vibrates maybe your facial bones and like your vagus nerve, which is like in your brainstem, right? So right in the like top of your back of your skull. And I will just walk around my house like while I'm doing a reset or doing dishes. And even if I'm not actively stressed or like triggered or whatever, I'll just go, and it works.
I know.
And actually I saw a study that was like, it brings your, I don't know what hormone or what it was. It was some like number down more than 30 minutes of meditation. And I was like, first of all, sold, way simpler. And I can't meditate. I can, I just choose not to. Let me reframe that. So this is an actual thing, right? Humming.
It is an actual thing. Humming and gargling too. That's another one you can gargle, but humming's easier than gargling, but you can also gargle.
I won't tell my kids about the gargling because they're just going to spit all over each other.
Yes. But I mean, that's what's amazing. Like that, you're bringing up a great point because that's what's like beautiful about all of this. Like, you can hum, like who can't just go around like you're saying, and when they're resetting and hum, who can't take 2 minutes, or 1 minute and just sit and do your breath, like breathe deeply in through your belly, pull it up through your chest and exhale, do some box breathing or something. We actually have like tools that are built into our body that are just amazing and they're simple. And so it doesn't all have to be this like complicated. I think when people think of functional medicine, they think like, oh, I'm gonna have to give up all my food. I'm gonna have to, like do all these things, but it doesn't have to be complicated. It's like, what can you do that's effective and get it in your day? And that's what we're always trying to see, because if it's too complicated, you're not going to do it. And then it's not going to have any effect for you.
Yeah. One thing I started doing maybe this summer was getting morning sunlight And you probably know where that came from. I might or might not listen to Dr. Andrew Huberman,
Yeah.
as do millions of other people.
Yeah.
And this isn't new information, but when he speaks, I listen. I don't know.
Yeah.
And now that it's like winter time, I have a little light I put on my coffee table, and I'm not one to like notice the an immediate impact. Typically, if I take a supplement or do a new thing in my routine, this is one thing I am like, this is definitely helping my energy levels throughout the day, whether it's like a 5-minute walk, morning sunlight. If that's not possible, I just put the light on the table, and it's like, the walk was free. We already had the light, but it's like, start really simple, right?
Yeah.
Start with the simplest thing that you can do in your season. And I think we also have to remember, when it comes to health, decluttering, whatever, that just because it might not be optimal, what you have in your mind of what it should look like, doesn't mean it's not beneficial. Like, we might think, what's the point of exercising for 2 minutes? Do air squats for 2 minutes. We go, well, that's not going to change anything. Yes, it is. It's still going to help, right?
It will. You're better off doing that and getting it in regular in your routine than trying to set yourself up for like, oh, I'm going to get a 30, 40, 50-minute workout that you're not going to get to. And so that's where, if you can just start small and just, even people I've had like walk around their house or their office in between appointments, or walk to the end of your block. If you're having trouble, like walk to the end of your block. Like, what are those things that you get? Then you realize like, oh, I got that and I can do it. That was easy. So I can graduate to the next thing, and then do the next thing. But do the squats for, put the timer on, do them a minute. And those things build, and then they also become easier. So even even with diet, like your taste buds change after about 6 weeks. So food that you started, when you're eating a lot of sugar all the time, when you eat other foods, they don't taste as sweet because you're so like washed out by all the sugar. But when you start to change your diet, you start to actually enjoy more foods and the natural sweet, and you can actually feel like taste the natural sweetness of food. So it's like, your body wants to adapt. It's just giving it that space to do so. Keep it small, keep it simple.
Love this. I think our bodies are can we just give our bodies a hand, like a round of applause? I mean, honestly, our bodies are works of art. Like we don't have to think about breathing, about digesting, about anything. It's just, and yes, our bodies need our full support. And we can always make these tweaks and do these things, but just for like, what a miracle we are truly living in. And sometimes, some days, I'll be honest, I really don't like my body or the way I'm feeling, but I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is incredible.
That's like another good thing to mention, because another thing when we talked about like just even going back to that first step, when you say like, we want to heal and we're amazing, but when we don't love the body that we're in, that also is again going back to those thoughts and reframing like that, thank you, body, for giving me the energy. Thank you for waking up today. And I like, really learning to love like who you are wherever you are is so important too. And that's the way that you can make more steps when you do. And I think some of it is we're our own worst enemies sometimes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think that's really beautiful. Dr. Meg, I have 2 bookend kind of questions for us today before we wrap. And that is, if you could declutter one thing from your life forever, no effort required, what would it be?
I think I would declutter my thoughts. I know we're just talking about that, but I think I would, because like, that's like when I see like working, like even for myself and like I am someone who has had to train a lot on that, because I have one of those minds that like go, and really working with, recognizing and replacing and thinking of that, like life and body and self in such a in a positive manner, that we are enough and that we're not getting bombarded by all those negative feelings. Because when you're living out of that space, it's holding you up from actually doing a lot of the things that you want to do.
Amen. I love that answer. Okay. So what is one thing in your home you would never let go of?
Oh, now that is a good question. Something I would never let go of. I have a couple little like memorabilia things from when my kids were babies. And that's
Oh,
just really a thing for me, like the emotional tie to having where they're not valuable, but they're sentimental. And I don't keep like, you and I were talking about like declutter. I'm with you on like not keeping a lot of clutter, but like just that emotional tie to like the
yeah.
memory of like them just being like so tiny and precious is just
Oh.
special to me. So I think that's more of a
Well,
like a
just
memory thing.
yeah, it's nostalgic and it's like it's the
Mm,
meaning. And I would argue that I would just tell yourself, speaking of thoughts, like that's not clutter. It's doing something
mhm.
for you. You know,
Yes.
it's part of your story. And I think when we do choose to have those keepsakes, like we have them for a purpose, just like we talked about on your show. And speaking
Mhm.
of show, tell everyone where to find you. So I was just on I will be on Dr. Meg's show soon, January, February, somewhere around there. So go find me talking all things clutter and physical health. Oh my gosh, so many connections and parallels. I'm obsessed with that
Yes.
too. But tell them where to find you and where to find more.
Yeah, so come over, join us. I have a podcast called A Little Bit Healthier, and we're talking about all of these things and things you can do every day. We break it down into great steps that you can do to be a little bit healthier. So if you're obviously a podcast listener, come over. We'd love to have you over there. And then my website is just megmill.com. I have a lot of information. We have a lot of resources and articles and recipes and all sorts of information over there for you. So just megmill.com. I also do have a work with me button if you want more information about that. Like I said, I have a virtual clinic where I work with people all over the world. And then I'm over on Instagram it's just Dr. Meg Mill, DrMegmill. And we have fun over on
Yeah.
Instagram. So I'd love to see you. And I do respond too. I really try to, because I love questions. So yes.
I love it. Yeah, I've been messaging you more. I'm like,
Yeah.
sometimes I hesitate to message people, but I'm like, you know what? Why not? So
Yeah,
yeah,
I know.
you're
It's
so
great to
great. You're so
connect.
great.
Yes.
Dr. Meg,
I
thanks so
know.
much. You are just a plethora of wisdom. I love this conversation. I love this topic. Thanks for coming on the show and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.